Have you ever felt like invisible forces like guilt, fear, or self-doubt are quietly shaping your life behind the scenes? What if these shadows you've been avoiding are not your enemies, but the secret keys to your spiritual growth? In this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's powerful concept of the shadow self and how embracing your hidden side can unlock emotional freedom and awaken your true potential. Get ready to uncover the unseen influences steering your decisions. But before we go further, who exactly was Carl Jung? He was a renowned psychologist, celebrated for his revolutionary insights into the human psyche and spirit. Jung believed that every person carries a shadow within, and the more we fail to acknowledge it in our conscious lives, the darker and more controlling it becomes. In essence, the more we deny these hidden parts of ourselves, the more they manipulate us from beneath the surface. These unseen aspects of our psyche influence our behaviors and emotions, often leaving us feeling stuck or estranged from our true identity. When we ignore the shadow, it doesn't just disappear, it festers. We might begin to blame others for traits we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. This mechanism, known as projection, fuels interpersonal conflict and further disconnects us from our authentic self. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand how to break from what's been secretly dominating your inner world. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which part of your shadow you're ready to explore, because naming it is the first step to healing it. Recognizing the shadow is just the beginning of deep self-awareness. It marks the threshold where real transformation takes root. Imagine if the very traits you've been conditioned to hide were actually the foundation of your true strength. The shadow harbors a potent truth, one that has the power to radically shift how you see yourself and your destiny. Jung's theory proposes that these repressed aspects of ourselves, our shadow, are molded by the expectations of family cultural norms and life experiences. As children, we quickly learn what's acceptable and what isn't. Anything that doesn't align with those expectations gets cast into the shadows. This is what Jung identified as the personal shadow, the internal vault where we lock away the parts of us we've denied or rejected. Consider a child repeatedly told that expressing anger is wrong. Over time, that child internalizes this belief and buries their anger deep within. As an adult, they may struggle to assert themselves or feel irritation toward others who express their emotions freely. But what's unexpected is this: by exploring that buried anger, they might find the path to healthy assertiveness and the ability to set necessary boundaries, both essential for personal success and emotional well-being. Jung also introduced the idea of the collective shadow, which encompasses the unconscious aspects of entire communities or cultures, including shared fears, biases, and judgments. For example, in a society that idolizes toughness, vulnerability might be shunned. This cultural suppression makes it harder for individuals to express emotion or form deep connections with others. Both the personal and collective shadow shape us on a daily basis. Someone who hides their vulnerability might instinctively react with defensiveness when criticized. Another person, having buried their creative impulses, might feel jealousy toward those who confidently express their artistic gifts. These unseen layers of the self deeply influence how we respond to life, often without our conscious awareness. The encouraging truth is this understanding: your shadow is the first step to reclaiming the parts of yourself you've silenced. Despite its ominous name, the shadow is not something to be feared. It's a wellspring of potential. Left unacknowledged, it builds walls that block you from becoming who you were meant to be. But when you dare to explore it, you unearth reservoirs of strength, wisdom, and talent you never knew you had. You open the door to transformation in a way you never expected. One of the most revealing ways the shadow makes its presence known is through emotional triggers. Imagine feeling an intense reaction when you encounter someone who exudes confidence. This discomfort may actually be a sign that you've buried your own longing to feel that same self-assurance. These emotional triggers aren't random. They act as signposts pointing toward aspects of ourselves we've hidden away. They are not merely annoyances, but clues, guiding lights into the heart of the shadow. Carl Jung taught that the shadow isn't purely negative. In fact, it holds within it both darkness and light, instincts, untapped creativity, and meaningful insights that are part of our wholeness. What we fear is often a hidden part of ourselves waiting to be embraced. Don't go anywhere, because we're about to explore shadow work, step by step. The courageous journey of reclaiming what was lost. Shadow work invites us to look inward, to investigate our emotions, identify our triggers, and reflect on the traits we've suppressed due to fear, shame, or societal pressure. It's a process that deepens self-awareness, builds emotional resilience, and reconnects us with a life that feels more aligned and authentic. As you learn to navigate these tools, you'll discover hidden reservoirs of strength and begin to harmonize with your truest self. Often when we start this journey, we fail to see just how deeply the shadow influences our daily lives. Think back to a time you met someone and for no clear reason took an immediate dislike to them. Jung's idea of psychological projection offers a profound explanation. He once remarked that we tend to attribute to others the very faults and inferior qualities we refuse to admit exist within us. This concept reveals a hard truth. What we despise in others may be a mirror reflecting something unresolved in ourselves. Projection is the unconscious act of placing our unwanted emotions or traits onto someone else. It serves as a kind of emotional shield, protecting us from the discomfort of facing parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. By casting these traits outward, we avoid the inner work that growth requires, but only temporarily. Take, for example, the irritation you might feel toward a colleague who seems overly proud or self-centered. It's easy to label them and move on. But if you look deeper, that sharp emotional response could be a message from your shadow. It may be that you've suppressed your own need for recognition or success. What irritates you in them might in fact reflect a hidden longing within yourself. Becoming conscious of projection can lead to powerful breakthroughs when you find yourself emotionally stirred by frustration, judgment, or jealousy. Pause and ask, what does this feeling reveal about me? These intense emotions are often pointing directly to the parts of the shadow crying out to be acknowledged and healed. As you cultivate this awareness, your relationships begin to shift. Rather than reacting with blame or criticism, you start to ask deeper, more compassionate questions. This internal pivot helps you relate with more authenticity and understanding, recognizing that what we perceive in others often says more about our inner state than it does about them. It's a humbling but liberating realization, and recognizing projection isn't easy. It takes time, honesty, and a willingness to look inward even when it's uncomfortable. Think about the last time someone close to you, a partner, child, or parent, really pushed your buttons instead of snapping pause. Ask yourself, what am I seeing in them that I may be avoiding in myself? A shift in perception can open up a deeper understanding of who you are. By seeing yourself through others, you will uncover hidden parts of yourself, beginning the process of healing and integrating your shadow self. Self-transformation starts by asking, what parts of me have I hidden or denied? This leads to deeper emotional clarity and stronger connections. Your relationships will evolve as you learn to see beyond surface reactions and into the deeper truth behind your feelings. But it's just as crucial to recognize that projection doesn't always carry a negative charge. Sometimes we project admirable traits onto others because we're unaware that those very qualities also live within us. Maybe you've found yourself in awe of someone's creativity or courage, without realizing that those same sparks lie dormant inside you, waiting for permission to shine. By identifying these positive projections, you can begin to reclaim the strengths you've long buried due to social conditioning or personal doubt. This process of recognition isn't just enlightening, it's empowering. It helps you step into your fullest potential with confidence and clarity. Engaging with projection and the shadow isn't a one-time task. It's a lifelong journey. As Carl Jung profoundly stated, only the person who dares to venture into the darkness can hope to move forward. It takes bravery and patience to face what you've concealed, but the transformation that follows is deeply rewarding. When you confront your projections and welcome the parts of yourself you've once exiled, you develop not only greater self-awareness and emotional strength, but also more honest and compassionate relationships. The path through our inner darkness often leads to surprising revelations of light. What if the traits you've most feared or suppressed, the ones you're ashamed of, are actually the keys to your highest form of growth? This idea challenges everything we're taught about self-improvement. Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we push away aren't merely flawed. They're also filled with immense potential, including qualities like creativity, confidence, and assertiveness. Rather than seeing the shadow as a dark pit of weakness, we can begin to view it as a rich, untapped reservoir of power. This perspective shift changes everything. Shadow work becomes less of a frightening task and more of an exciting exploration. Instead of dreading what we might find, we start to approach ourselves with curiosity and compassion. Take assertiveness as an example. In many cultures, especially for women, assertiveness has been wrongly labeled as arrogance or aggression. As a result, many people suppress this vital trait, tucking it deep into their shadow. But when assertiveness is retrieved and integrated, it becomes a powerful force, one that helps us set boundaries, advocate for ourselves, and move confidently toward our goals. Creativity is another common casualty of the shadow. Societal expectations, fear of judgment, or practical worries often drive people to deny their artistic impulses. The result is a lingering sense of frustration or incompleteness. But when creativity is brought into the light and expressed, it unleashes a deep sense of fulfillment, innovation, and joy. Jung believed that embracing these hidden aspects of the self leads to what he called psychological wholeness. Personal growth doesn't come from chopping away pieces of who we are. It comes from recognizing, integrating, and honoring every facet of our psyche. The goal isn't perfection, it's authenticity. It's about becoming the most complete and honest version of yourself possible. Still, the journey isn't without its challenges. Jung reminded us that the shadow is a moral challenge, a test of our entire ego. Becoming conscious of the shadow requires effort, humility, and an unwavering willingness to confront our inner truth. It can feel difficult, it can be painful, and yes, it can be frightening, but what lies on the other side is extraordinary. By reclaiming the positive traits we've hidden, by breathing life back into our lost confidence, creativity, and courage, we unlock new pathways to navigate life's complexity. These rediscovered strengths allow us to respond with greater flexibility, depth, and grace. We begin to live more freely, no longer constrained by the unconscious fears that once held us back. So if you're wondering how to begin identifying your shadow, know that the journey starts not with judgment, but with curiosity. It begins by noticing your triggers, exploring your emotional responses, and asking yourself what parts of you might be longing to return. And from there, transformation unfolds. Reclaiming your positive shadow traits often begins with a surprisingly simple exercise. Think about someone you deeply admire or perhaps even feel a touch of envy toward. Ask yourself, What qualities do they possess that stand out? Confidence, creativity, boldness, kindness. Then take it a step further. Could it be that these same traits exist within you too, hidden beneath layers of doubt or underdevelopment? This reflection can offer powerful insights into your own shadow and reveal the dormant parts of yourself waiting to be nurtured and expressed. Another way to uncover your shadow is by observing your emotional responses, especially the strong ones. When someone's behavior stirs something intense in you, whether admiration or irritation, ask yourself what that reaction might be pointing to within you. Often the traits that trigger us the most, whether positively or negatively, are those we've buried in the shadows. These reactions are mirrors quietly reflecting back parts of our inner world that we have yet to fully acknowledge. It's important to understand that the goal of shadow work is not to eliminate the shadow. The shadow is not an enemy. It's an essential and natural part of who we are. The aim is to build a conscious relationship with it, to learn from it, and to use its energy for transformation and self-awareness. When we do this, we step into a more balanced, resilient, and authentic life. But what does it really take to confront your deepest fears? The ones you've hidden for so long, you barely recognize them anymore? The path of shadow work promises incredible rewards, including personal freedom and fulfillment. Yet the journey is not easy. Many turn away at the first sign of discomfort. But what if that very discomfort is a signpost? What if it's guiding you toward your greatest breakthroughs? Carl Jung warned us that simply understanding the shadow isn't enough. Real transformation requires moral courage. He taught that to become conscious of the shadow means to recognize and accept the darker aspects of our personality as real and present. It's not about fixing ourselves. It's about facing ourselves with honesty. The first barrier we often encounter is resistance. Our minds are designed to shield us from what feels threatening, and self-reflection can shake the foundations of how we've always seen ourselves. But discomfort is not the enemy. It's a message. When we feel uneasy, it's often because we are brushing against something that needs healing. This discomfort is a gateway, not a wall. To walk this path, we need both bravery and gentleness. It takes immense courage to face the parts of ourselves that don't align with the image we wish to uphold. But that courage must be paired with compassion. When we meet our hidden fears, flaws, or unmet needs with kindness instead of judgment, we create the space for true healing to take root. Early in this process, you might encounter either powerful emotions like guilt, shame, or anger. These aren't obstacles, they're signals. They arise to show you where the pain lives, and by facing them, instead of fleeing, you begin the work of integration. You learn to honor these emotions for the truths they reveal. Emotional resilience becomes a key tool in shadow work. It's the ability to remain grounded and present, even when faced with uncomfortable truths. Mindfulness meditation can support this by helping you observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. As you practice, you'll start to witness emotions come and go, like waves rising, cresting, and passing without drowning in their intensity. A vital shift happens when you let go of judgment. So many of the traits we've hidden were cast into the shadows because society or past experiences taught us to reject them. But what if, instead of condemning these parts, we approached them with curiosity? What if we asked not, "What's wrong with me?" but "Why did I need to hide this part of myself?" That change in perspective opens the door to understanding, and that's where true healing begins. Finally, it's essential to remember that shadow work isn't a one-time revelation. It's a lifelong unfolding. Just when you feel you've peeled back a layer and seen what's hidden, another layer may emerge, and that's okay. This is the nature of deep inner work. Each step takes you closer to your true self, not by fixing what is broken, but by welcoming every part of who you are into the light. Jung called it a long process of negotiation, a continuous inner dialogue with the unconscious mind in which we gradually bring more hidden aspects of ourselves into the light of awareness. This negotiation isn't something you rush. It unfolds slowly, steadily in everyday moments of reflection and emotional honesty. If you're just beginning your journey with shadow work, it's wise to start small. Instead of diving headfirst into the most painful parts of your past, begin by examining your minor irritations, those everyday annoyances and fleeting judgments. These small triggers can serve as powerful doorways into the shadow. They may seem insignificant at first, but they often reveal underlying beliefs or wounds you've long ignored. As you become more at ease with the process, you can gradually move deeper, exploring the more complex and painful dimensions of your inner world. One of the most accessible and effective tools for this process is journaling. Writing creates a safe personal space where you can express thoughts and emotions that you might not otherwise dare to voice. You don't need to worry about grammar or structure. Just let your thoughts flow. The goal is not perfection, but presence. Over time, you may notice recurring patterns or emotional themes emerging from your entries, clues that guide you toward parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Support is also key. Shadow work, while personal, doesn't have to be solitary. A trusted mentor or guide can make the journey less overwhelming. A skilled teacher offers not only emotional support, but perspective, pointing out aspects of your shadow you may be blind to and providing tools for navigating difficult emotions. They become mirrors, helping you see what you can't see for yourself. What if I told you that something as simple as a pen and paper could become your most powerful tool for transformation? Your shadow holds incredible potential for growth. But the path to unlocking that potential doesn't require elaborate rituals or expensive therapy sessions. Sometimes just a few minutes of intentional self-reflection each day can completely transform your understanding of yourself and your life. Carl Jung believed that practical everyday methods were the most powerful for engaging the shadow. It's not enough to intellectually grasp the idea of the shadow. We must actively work with it. That's where shadow journaling comes in. This isn't about writing polished prose or maintaining a traditional diary. It's about raw, uncensored honesty, getting the thoughts and emotions out of your head and onto the page. This act of release gives you the distance and clarity needed to see your patterns more clearly. To begin, carve out a few quiet moments in your day. Choose a time when you won't be interrupted. Focus on a moment that stirred strong emotion in you, a moment of frustration, shame, jealousy, or even admiration. Ask yourself, what exactly made me feel that way? Why did I react like that? These questions are like lanterns illuminating the shadow's hiding places. The more you reflect, the more you uncover traits and beliefs that have been shaping your life without your awareness. Pairing journaling with mindfulness can amplify its impact. Mindfulness helps you watch your thoughts and emotions without judgment, creating a more compassionate inner space. It also heightens your sensitivity to moments of projection when you're unconsciously casting your own feelings onto others. A simple mindfulness practice could be pausing a few times a day to check in with yourself. What are you feeling physically, emotionally, mentally? Are you present or escaping into reaction? And there are other tools too. Self-reflection exercises offer a direct route into the shadow. The next time someone's behavior frustrates or irritates you, don't just analyze their actions. Instead, turn the lens inward. Ask, what am I really reacting to here? Could this be something I haven't allowed myself to express or acknowledge? That shift from judgment to inquiry can reveal parts of your shadow that have long gone unnoticed. Jung understood that this work is layered. It's not linear. Just when you think you've peeled back one part of your shadow, another layer emerges. But that's the beauty of the process. It's a continual unfolding, a slow integration of the hidden into the whole. And as you do the work, you begin to reclaim the fullness of who you are. Strengths, flaws, potential, and truth alike. Jung emphasized the importance of approaching shadow work with honesty and self-compassion. As you begin to uncover different aspects of yourself, some that may feel uncomfortable, others surprisingly empowering, it's essential to meet these discoveries not with judgment, but with curiosity. The objective isn't to eliminate your shadow, but to understand it and foster a healthier, more integrated relationship with it. If you're unsure where to begin, here's a simple daily routine to ease into shadow work. Start your day with just a few minutes of mindfulness. Tune into your thoughts and emotions without trying to change or analyze them. Just observe. Throughout the day, take brief pauses to check in with how you're feeling, especially in moments of strong emotional response. Then, in the evening, devote 10 to 15 minutes to journaling about your day. Focus on the insights or emotional patterns that surfaced, even the small ones. They're often the most revealing. It's important to remember that discomfort and resistance are normal parts of the process. In fact, they often indicate that you're nearing something deeply rooted in your subconscious. When these difficult emotions arise, be gentle with yourself. This isn't a race or a test. It takes real courage to confront your shadow, and every small act of reflection is a meaningful step toward deeper self-awareness and personal growth. But what is it about certain stories that resonate so universally across time, culture, and background? Why are we drawn again and again to tales that seem to reflect our own inner struggles? The answer lies in their mirror-like quality. Myths, legends, and classic literature often illuminate the hidden parts of ourselves. What Jung called the shadow. Take the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Dr. Jekyll creates a potion that allows him to transform into Mr. Hyde, a dark and chaotic version of himself. The narrative powerfully demonstrates what can happen when we try to banish the darker aspects of our personality. Rather than making Jekyll whole, the suppression of his shadow leads to internal collapse and external destruction. The lesson is striking: to live in balance. We must acknowledge and integrate all parts of ourselves. Why does this story strike such a deep chord in readers? Because it speaks to a universal inner conflict. The tension between who we strive to be and the aspects of ourselves we're taught to reject. Jekyll's attempt to separate good from bad ultimately fails, reminding us that wholeness doesn't come from division, but from unity. The shadow, rather than being an enemy, is a vital part of our humanity. This theme appears not only in Victorian literature, but in myths and folklore across cultures. Trickster figures like Loki in Norse mythology, or Coyote in Native American traditions embody the chaos, deception, and unpredictability we're often reluctant to acknowledge in ourselves. Yet these characters are not villains, they're catalysts, agents of transformation, mischief, and growth. By studying these stories, we gain a deeper understanding of our own psychological landscape. They show us how the shadow influences not only our inner lives, but also our behavior, relationships, and worldview. These tales endure across generations because they resonate with something timeless within us. They help us process fear, shame, desire, and conflict, all the things we hesitate to face directly. And perhaps even more importantly, they offer hope. Many myths tell of heroes who must confront their own darkness before they can achieve wisdom, healing, or victory. This aligns perfectly with Jung's view of the shadow not as a prison of flaws, but as a wellspring of creativity, intuition, and unrealized potential. Facing the shadow isn't a detour from the path of growth, it is the path. Using stories as a tool in your own shadow work can be incredibly powerful. Pay attention to which characters or narratives evoke strong emotional responses. If a story moves you deeply or unsettles you, ask why. What part of your inner life is it reflecting? This kind of reflection can reveal emotions, longings, and truths you may have tucked away for years. Another method is to reframe the story. What would happen if you viewed the so-called villain or flawed character from a different angle? Could their struggle be your own? Could their shadow resemble yours? When you engage stories this way, you begin to reclaim the narratives within yourself. Through myth, metaphor, and memory, shadow work becomes not just personal, but mythic. It becomes a journey toward the self led not by fear, but by the transformative power of story. Try viewing events from the villain's perspective. Understanding their motives can be an unexpected gateway to empathy. When you begin to grasp the reasons behind their actions, you may also recognize similar traits, fears, or desires within yourself. This doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior, but rather it allows you to see the shadow at work, both in fictional characters and in your own psyche. Exploring your shadow through stories like these becomes a unique and revealing journey into self-discovery. These tales don't just help us see the parts of ourselves we've repressed or rejected. They serve as symbolic guides offering insights into the structure of our inner world. Engaging with myths and narratives in this way is more than entertainment. It becomes a ritual of reflection, a form of emotional healing and personal growth. They show us what we're afraid to confront, and in doing so, they gently nudge us toward wholeness. But the effects of shadow work don't stop at the individual level. In fact, Carl Jung believed that the shadow is not only something we carry within ourselves, it's also something we share as a society. This broader communal form of darkness is what he called the collective shadow. It includes societal patterns we'd rather not acknowledge. Prejudices, violence, injustice, and systemic inequality. These shadows linger beneath the surface of our institutions and cultures, often denied yet constantly shaping our world. When we avoid addressing the collective shadow, we risk consequences that are not only destructive, but morally blinding. Division deepens empathy, erodes, and inequality flourishes. Worse still, these harmful patterns are often justified as being for the greater good, which makes them even harder to dismantle. True healing, whether individual or societal, requires us to confront these dark truths, not just intellectually, but at moral, political, and spiritual levels. According to Jung, it all begins with facing your own personal shadow. From that inner work, a greater awareness blossoms, one that extends outward into social consciousness. By confronting your hidden fears and biases, you begin to see how they connect to larger issues like injustice, poverty, health disparities, or exclusion. Personal growth, then, isn't just about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about becoming a more conscious citizen of the world. For example, someone who has done the inner work of confronting their own prejudices will be better equipped to recognize and speak out against unfair treatment of others in their workplace or community. This kind of awareness sparks real change. It begins with self-reflection, but ends in action. Action that can transform systems, cultures, and lives. Facing the collective shadow is not for the faint of heart. It demands that we confront uncomfortable truths, not just about others, but about ourselves. It requires difficult conversations, the humility to admit when we've been wrong, and the courage to acknowledge historical wounds. Jung once observed that the world is still full of scapegoats, reminding us that we often project our own darkness onto others instead of taking responsibility for it ourselves. But when we stop blaming and start looking inward, something powerful happens. We create space for real solutions. Healing the collective shadow can take many forms. truth-telling, public acknowledgement of harm, apologies, or reparations for communities who have suffered. These are not symbolic gestures. They are necessary acts of moral repair. They prevent cycles of harm from repeating and open the path to genuine reconciliation. By doing the work of recognizing both our personal and collective shadows, we can help shape a world that is more just balanced and compassionate. When we face our shadows, as Jung urged, we come to understand how our fears, judgments, and biases fuel the very systems we wish to change. This realization becomes a call to action. In practical terms, that might mean acknowledging your own unconscious biases and using your voice to challenge inequality in your school, workplace, or community. It could involve supporting policies that promote fairness, or simply choosing to listen more deeply to those whose experiences differ from your own. Even institutions, businesses, governments, schools can benefit from shadow work. Honest dialogue about past mistakes, structural injustices, or harmful cultural norms can lead to deep, lasting change. These steps may be uncomfortable, but they are necessary. And as Jung so beautifully said, the courage with which we bear our darkness frees others from having to carry it for us. When we take responsibility for our own shadows, personal or collective, we help lighten the emotional and societal burden for others. In doing our part, we contribute to the healing of the whole. Into the light, you deepen the connection between who you think you are and who you truly are beneath the surface. This continuous inner dialogue, what Jung described as a long process of negotiation, is what allows for lasting transformation. It's not about quick fixes or spiritual perfection, but about steady, honest engagement with your inner world. In doing so, you contribute not only to your own healing, but to the building of a more compassionate and fair society. Recognizing the collective shadow is no small task. It requires attention, humility, and the willingness to challenge long-standing norms. You begin to see patterns that once seemed invisible, question beliefs you may have inherited, and open yourself up to difficult but necessary conversations. Through this work, we begin to address the deep-rooted wounds within our culture, paving the way for communities that are not only more just, but also more empathetic and inclusive. As we strive to create more understanding and kinder spaces, an even deeper question begins to emerge. What does it truly mean to feel whole? Imagine what it would feel like to be at peace with every part of yourself, even the parts you've spent a lifetime trying to hide. While it might seem distant or even impossible, Carl Jung believed this sense of inner balance, what he called individuation, is not only possible, but essential. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process of becoming whole. By bringing the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche into harmony. This doesn't mean erasing your flaws or achieving perfection. It means acknowledging and embracing every part of yourself, even the ones you were taught to reject. When you stop fighting with yourself, when you stop suppressing or projecting, you begin to live with greater peace, presence, and authenticity. The rewards of shadow work are profound. As you get to know your shadow and integrate it, you become emotionally stronger. You're better equipped to face life's inevitable challenges and less likely to fall into destructive patterns that once felt automatic. One of the most transformative benefits is the improvement in your relationships. When you understand your own inner complexity, you become more empathetic, less reactive, and more forgiving of others. Instead of projecting your fears, insecurities, or frustrations onto those around you, you begin to connect with them from a place of truth and openness. This shift in awareness can enhance not only your close personal relationships, but also your interactions in the workplace, in your community, and beyond. Self-awareness becomes your compass, helping you navigate even the most difficult social terrain with grace. People who have committed to shadow work often speak of a deep sense of liberation. They no longer feel enslaved by society's expectations or their own limiting narratives. Instead, they move through life with a grounded confidence, no longer needing to hide or perform. They live more fully and more freely. Imagine someone who has faced their shadow coming into a high-pressure work environment, where once they might have reacted defensively to feedback, they now receive it with openness and curiosity. Their self-awareness allows them to recognize emotional triggers without being ruled by them. It doesn't mean they don't feel hurt or frustrated, but they've learned to respond, not just react in relationships. This kind of integration creates space for true connection. Someone who has embraced their shadow understands the value of vulnerability. They communicate more clearly, set healthy boundaries, and aren't afraid to express their needs. They've come to see that being open isn't a liability, it's a strength, and that strength becomes the foundation for deeply supportive, loving bonds. Still, shadow integration isn't a destination. It's a journey. New layers continue to emerge, often just when you think the work is done. It takes patience, it takes courage, and it takes a deep commitment to self-reflection. Jung reminded us that this unfolding can't be rushed. It's a dialogue, a dance, a lifelong negotiation with the self. But with every layer you bring into the light, you grow more whole. And in doing so, you not only transform your life, you become a light for others, showing that healing is possible, authenticity is powerful, and wholeness is worth. Every step leads us not away from our inner darkness, but directly through it. When we stop running and start embracing what we fear or reject within ourselves, we begin the real journey toward wholeness. If you're seeking that sense of inner integration, here's a simple yet powerful visualization to guide you. Close your eyes and picture yourself standing in a bright, peaceful space. Everything around you feels calm and safe. In front of you stands a mirror, but when you look into it, you don't see your usual reflection. Instead, a shadowy figure appears, an embodiment of the parts of yourself you've pushed away, feared, or ignored. As you step closer to this figure, you begin to recognize it. These are your emotions, your forgotten dreams, your repressed desires, your untold stories. Rather than recoiling or turning away, imagine walking through the mirror, merging with this shadowy presence. As the two of you become one, feel the discomfort transform into peace, tension dissolve into harmony. When you open your eyes, carry that sensation of wholeness with you throughout your day. Let it guide your actions and thoughts. By accepting all parts of yourself, you unlock the power to live fully and authentically. This is the essence of psychological wholeness, to acknowledge, integrate, and shine light on every facet of who we are. While shadow work begins as a deeply personal process, its impact ripples far beyond the individual. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow has profoundly shaped the way we understand modern spirituality, psychology, and self-awareness. From personality assessments to healing modalities, his influence is undeniable. For example, the widely used Myers-Briggs type indicator is rooted in Jung's psychological theories. It helps individuals recognize both their conscious tendencies and unconscious traits, allowing for greater understanding of what lies beneath the surface. By identifying the parts of ourselves we've hidden, we take the first step toward both personal and spiritual development. Shadow work has also become a cornerstone in many modern therapeutic and spiritual healing practices. Whether through talk therapy or holistic healing, professionals guide people beyond surface-level issues to the core of what's been repressed. The goal is not perfection, but acceptance. Real healing happens when we stop running from ourselves and begin to embrace our entirety, including the parts we've avoided. Even within traditional psychotherapy, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Shadow elements often emerge. CBT encourages individuals to examine the beliefs behind their emotions and behaviors. This often uncovers fears or desires we didn't even realize we were harboring. As those hidden elements come into view, healing becomes not just possible, but transformative. Scientific research backs this up. People who cultivate self-awareness and self-acceptance tend to experience lower anxiety, greater emotional resilience, and more meaningful connections with others. By bringing our unconscious into consciousness by meeting our shadow, we liberate ourselves from the weight of shame and fear. Shadow work is also deeply connected to emotional intelligence and positive psychology. Contrary to popular belief, spiritual growth doesn't mean being positive all the time. True growth involves learning to sit with both joy and discomfort, light and darkness. Only by integrating both sides of the human experience can we become truly whole. This integration has implications far beyond personal wellness. In leadership and community settings, those who've engaged in shadow work often lead with greater compassion, integrity, and authenticity. Leaders who have confronted their own limitations are more equipped to foster open, empathetic, and inclusive environments. They don't lead from ego, but from understanding. If you feel called to explore shadow work more deeply, know that you're not alone. There are countless resources, spiritual guides, and therapists who specialize in this work. Jung's legacy reminds us shadow work is not about fixing ourselves. It's about uncovering who we've always been beneath the masks. So ask yourself, how might your life change? If instead of running from your inner darkness, you welcomed it with curiosity and care. The path to wholeness isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. By doing this work, you don't just transform your own life, you help create a world with more compassion, empathy, and truth. And that is the power of bringing the shadow into the light. The path to wholeness often leads us through the very shadows we've spent years avoiding. Carl Jung, the visionary psychologist who introduced the concept of the shadow, once said, "There is no light without shadow." This profound truth captures the transformative power of shadow work. It's not about eliminating our darkness, it's about reclaiming it, understanding it, and letting it teach us something essential about who we are. Jung's philosophy urges us to move toward authenticity and inner balance as the foundation of psychological health. By acknowledging and embracing every part of ourselves, even the ones we've disowned or denied, we move closer to what he called individuation. This isn't about perfection. It's not about fixing flaws or pretending they don't exist. It's about acceptance, welcoming both our light and our dark sides with equal compassion. The journey toward integration often begins with simple questions. What parts of me have I been avoiding? What traits do I criticize in others that may reflect something unacknowledged within myself? These reflections, though uncomfortable at times, open the door to deep insight and lasting personal growth. When you begin to embrace your shadow, you also begin to experience the freedom of living more authentically. Emotional resilience grows. You become less reactive, more present, and more able to handle life's inevitable challenges. Self-sabotaging behaviors start to fade, not because you forced them away, but because you finally understood where they came from. At the heart of this process lies self-acceptance. To accept yourself doesn't mean to excuse harmful behavior. It means understanding it, recognizing that behind every shadow lies an unmet need, a wound, or a forgotten truth. With this awareness, what once seemed like a flaw can be transformed into a source of strength, wisdom, and clarity. But let's be honest, confronting the parts of yourself you've hidden isn't easy. The shame, fear, or anger you've buried doesn't vanish overnight. Yet, with time and compassion, these same emotions can become powerful allies. Imagine a more integrated version of yourself, one who faces challenges with grounded confidence. Instead of reacting defensively to criticism, you pause, you listen, you reflect, and from that place of self-awareness, you respond with grace and intention to begin tapping into this power. Try this simple meditation. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably, take a few deep breaths, and center yourself. Bring to mind a part of yourself that you've struggled to accept, whether it's a habit, a mistake, or a difficult emotion. Hold that part gently in your awareness and repeat silently. I acknowledge this part of me. I accept it as part of my whole self. I am worthy of love and acceptance, including all my complexities. Sit with that thought. Let it settle. Let it soften. Whatever tension or resistance arises, remember, embracing your shadow isn't about indulging your pain, it's about meeting it with compassion. And in doing so, you may just uncover a wellspring of inner strength, creativity, and clarity you never knew you had. As we conclude this exploration of Jung's concept of the shadow, keep in mind that this isn't a one-time task. Shadow work is a lifelong journey, an ongoing dance between awareness and integration. Jung reminded us that to truly become conscious of the shadow, we must recognize it as real, present, and part of our personality. This continual practice builds not only emotional resilience, but also more genuine, fulfilling relationships. When we stop projecting our pain onto others and begin taking ownership of it, our connections deepen, our empathy expands. We lead love and live from a place of wholeness. Jung described the shadow as the door to our individuality. By engaging with it regularly with openness, patience, and compassion, we unlock hidden strengths and transform perceived weaknesses into assets. This path isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. So as you continue your journey of growth, ask yourself, how might embracing your shadow lead to a more authentic, fulfilling life? The path of self-discovery is yours to walk, and the light you're seeking may be waiting in the very place you feared to look. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join our community of people committed to growth and transformation. Share your thoughts below, whether you're just starting your shadow work or already feeling its power. And remember, the most meaningful journey you'll ever take is the one that brings you back to your whole, true self. Stay tuned. There's more to explore on this profound and powerful path.